Emily sat on a cold wooden bench in the city park, her lunchbox resting on her lap. The autumn wind blew gently, carrying with it the smell of dry leaves and roasted chestnuts from a nearby street stall. Her hands were tired from typing all morning at the office, and her mind buzzed with endless tasks she had left unfinished. For her, this small break in the park was the only moment of peace in a long, tiring day. She unwrapped her sandwich carefully. It wasn't anything fancy, just bread, lettuce, cheese, and a thin slice of chicken. But to Emily, it felt like a small reward for surviving the endless meetings and phone calls at work. She took a small bite and closed her eyes for a moment, letting the taste calm her. When she opened her eyes, she noticed him. A man sat under the big oak tree, not too far from her bench. His clothes were torn and dirty, his beard was thick and messy, and his face carried lines of both age and suffering. His shoes had holes, and his thin hands were shivering in the cold wind. He looked hungry. Very hungry. Emily felt her chest tighten. She had seen homeless people before, but something about this man was different. His eyes. Even from a distance, she could see his eyes deep, tired, but strangely gentle. He wasn't begging or calling out to anyone. He just sat there, staring at the ground, as if the world had forgotten him. Emily looked down at her sandwich. She had been hungry just moments ago, but now, guilt pressed against her. She thought about her warm apartment, her comfortable bed, and the hot shower she had that very morning. Then she looked at him again, sitting on the cold ground, empty-handed, invisible to everyone walking by. Her heart argued with her mind. It's just one sandwich. I can buy another later. But what if he refuses? What if he gets angry? What if people stare at me? For a few minutes, Emily stayed frozen, caught between kindness and fear. Then, she took a deep breath, stood up, and walked slowly toward the man. The sound of her footsteps made him lift his head. His eyes locked on hers, confused, almost cautious, as if he expected her to ignore him like everyone else did. Emily held the sandwich tightly in her hands, her palms sweating. Excuse me, she said softly, her voice almost trembling. Would you like this? For a moment, the man just stared at her. His lips trembled, his eyes widened, and a faint shine of tears appeared in them. Slowly, very slowly, he reached out his hands. His fingers shook as if he wasn't sure he deserved it. Emily placed the sandwich in his hands. It's fresh, she whispered, trying to smile. The man looked at the sandwich as though it was treasure. His throat moved as he swallowed hard, and then, in a broken, raspy voice, he whispered, thank you so much. His voice was so soft, so fragile, that Emily's heart almost broke. She could feel the weight of his gratitude in those few words. He clutched the sandwich like a lifeline and took a small, careful bite, as though he didn't want to waste a single crumb. Emily stood there for a moment, unsure what to do. She wanted to say something more, but the lump in her throat wouldn't let her. Finally, she nodded, gave him a small smile, and walked back to her bench. But as she sat down, she realized something: her appetite was gone. She no longer felt hungry. Instead, she felt something else, a strange mix of warmth and unease. The rest of her lunch break passed slowly. She kept glancing at the man, watching him eat. Every bite he took seemed to carry deep meaning, like it was not just food but hope. Other people in the park walked by without noticing him. Some even gave him sharp looks, as if his very presence was an inconvenience. Emily clenched her fists, angry at how invisible he was to the world. When the man finished the sandwich, he looked up again. His eyes found hers across the park. For a brief second, they simply stared at each other. Then, he gave her the faintest nod, his lips trembling into a weak but genuine smile. Emily returned the smile, though her chest felt heavy. Something about him stayed with her, his silence, his eyes, the way he held the sandwich as if it was the most precious thing in the world. That evening, Emily walked back to her apartment. The city was noisy, cars honking, people rushing, neon lights flashing. But her mind kept drifting back to the man under the oak tree. She wondered who he was. How had his life ended up on the streets? Did he have a family? Did anyone miss him? Lying in bed later that night, she thought about his eyes again. They were not empty, like most people assumed about the homeless. They were full of something, maybe pain, maybe secrets. Whatever it was, it unsettled her. She tossed and turned, unable to sleep. It was strange she had given away her food, a simple sandwich, but it felt like she had stepped into something bigger, something unknown. The next morning, just as Emily was pouring herself coffee, a sharp knock rattled her apartment door. Bang! 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 The sound echoed through her small kitchen, making her heart jump. She froze, the coffee cup trembling in her hand. Who could it be at this hour? The knocking came again, louder this time. Emily walked slowly to the door, her heartbeat quickening. She pressed her eye to the peephole and froze. 2 men in uniform stood outside. Police officers. Her hands went cold. She opened the door cautiously. Yes, she asked, her voice small. One of the officers held up a picture. Her stomach dropped. It was him. The homeless man from the park. The officer's voice was firm. Miss, we need to ask you some questions. Were you at the city park yesterday afternoon? Emily's mouth went dry. Her mind spun in confusion. Why were the police here? Why were they asking about him? She nodded slowly, fear and curiosity mixing in her chest. Yes. I was there, she whispered. The officers exchanged a serious look. This man, the officer said, pointing at the picture, is not who you think he is. Emily stood frozen at her doorway, staring at the photograph in the officer's hand. The face was unmistakable, the same man she had seen under the oak tree yesterday, the same man she had offered her sandwich to. Her throat tightened. Yes, that's him, she whispered. But, why are you asking about him? He's just a homeless man, isn't he? The taller officer, his expression calm but serious, shook his head slowly. Miss, it's not that simple. Can we come inside and talk? Emily hesitated. She had never been questioned by the police before. A dozen wild thoughts raced through her head. Had she done something wrong? Was she in trouble for giving him food? That didn't make sense. Still, the unease in the officer's eyes told her this was no ordinary visit. With trembling fingers, she opened the door wider. Why yes, please, come in. The 2 officers stepped into her small apartment. Their heavy boots made the wooden floor creak. Emily closed the door behind them, her palms sweating. The younger officer pulled out a notepad. You said you saw this man yesterday? Yes, Emily replied, sitting nervously on the edge of her couch. He was in the park, under the big oak tree. He looked so hungry. I gave him my sandwich. The officers exchanged a glance, their faces tightening. Did he say anything to you? Did he tell you his name? The taller one asked. Emily shook her head. No. He only said thank you. That's all. Silence filled the room for a moment. Emily's heart hammered in her chest. She felt like there was something very important she didn't know, something that scared even the police. Finally, the younger officer spoke. Miss, the man you saw is not just a homeless man. His name is Daniel Hart. He's been missing for over 3 weeks. Emily's eyes widened. Missing? What do you mean? He was reported missing by his family, the officer explained. Mr. Hart is, or was, a respected businessman in this city. His sudden disappearance shocked everyone. His family has been searching desperately for him. We had almost no leads until now. Emily felt dizzy. She looked at the photograph again. The man in the clean suit in the picture and the man under the tree yesterday seemed like 2 different people. How could that tired, broken man once be someone so important? But, how, she whispered. Why was he on the street? He didn't look like someone who belonged there. The taller officer sighed. That's what we're trying to find out. People disappear for many reasons: stress, financial problems, family conflicts. Sometimes they just walk away from everything. But his case was unusual. There were suspicions that something bad might have happened to him. Emily's blood ran cold. Something bad? Like a crime? The officer didn't answer directly. He looked at her with steady eyes. That's what we need to determine. And you, miss, may be the last person to have seen him alive and safe. The words hit her like a storm. The last person to have seen him alive. Her chest tightened. She had only given him food, nothing more. Yet now, somehow, she was part of a bigger story she didn't understand. Emily rubbed her hands nervously. I don't know anything else. I swear. He just looked so lost. I only wanted to help. The younger officer's expression softened. We're not accusing you of anything. In fact, your kindness might be the reason we know he's still out there. Without you, maybe no one would have noticed him. Emily swallowed hard, her heart racing. She thought about the way Daniel had looked at her yesterday, the gratitude, the silent nod. She had thought it was just a small moment of kindness. But now it felt like a clue, a thread in a much larger mystery. Where is he now? She asked suddenly. The taller officer shook his head. We don't know. When our team went to the park this morning, he was gone. Emily's breath caught. Gone? But he had been right there yesterday. She had expected the police to say he was safe, maybe in a shelter. Not that he had vanished again. Her mind spun with questions. Did he run away? Was he taken? Did something happen to him after I left? Miss, the officer continued, we need your help. Did you notice anything unusual about him? Anything he said, did, or carried with him? Emily closed her eyes, trying to remember. The way his hands shook. The way he clutched the sandwich like it was priceless. His silence. His eyes, yes, those eyes. They had been filled with something she couldn't describe. He seemed scared, she said slowly. Not just hungry. It was like he was hiding. Like he didn't want anyone to find him. The officers leaned forward, listening carefully. Scared, the younger one repeated. Did he say who he was hiding from? Emily shook her head again. No. But it was in his eyes. I felt it. He wasn't just a man who lost his home. It was like he was carrying a secret. The room fell quiet. Emily could feel the weight of her words pressing down on everyone. After a long pause, the taller officer stood up. Thank you, Mississippi. You've helped us more than you know. If you see him again, or if he tries to contact you, call us immediately. Emily stood too, her legs shaky. Of course. I will. The officers headed toward the door. But just before leaving, the younger one turned back and looked at her. His expression was serious, almost warning. Miss, he said carefully, please, be careful. If Mr. Hart is truly hiding from someone, then whoever he is running from might not be far behind. The words sent a shiver down Emily's spine. She watched as the door closed behind them, leaving her alone in her quiet apartment. Her coffee had gone cold on the counter. Emily sat back down on the couch, her mind racing faster than ever. She tried to calm herself, but the officer's last words echoed in her head. Be careful. Whoever he is running from might not be far behind. That night, Emily couldn't eat. She couldn't even think about her work or her daily routine. All she could see was Daniel Hart's face, those weary eyes, the gratitude, the silent plea for help. Why had he disappeared? Why had he been living like a shadow in the park? And now, where had he gone? Hours passed as she lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, her heart heavy with questions. Every sound outside made her jump. Every shadow felt like it was hiding something. Finally, sometime past midnight, she drifted into a restless sleep. But her peace did not last long. A sound woke her. A faint noise. Tap. Tap. Her eyes flew open. It came from her window. Emily's breath caught in her throat. Slowly, carefully, she turned her head toward the window. And there, in the pale light of the moon, she saw a shadow. A figure. Standing outside. Watching her. Emily woke up the next morning, her heart still racing from the shadow she saw at her window. But when she looked again, there was nothing, only the empty street outside, bathed in early morning sunlight. She tried to shake off the fear, telling herself it was probably just a tree branch, a trick of the moonlight, or her imagination running wild. But deep inside, she knew that yesterday had changed everything. Giving a sandwich to a stranger had led to the police knocking on her door, questions she could barely answer, and now, shadows outside her window. Emily brewed a cup of coffee, hands trembling, her mind spinning. She couldn't stop thinking about the homeless man, Daniel Hart. Who was he really? And why had he been hiding? Her phone rang suddenly, making her jump. She picked it up. "Hello," she said, her voice shaky. "Emily," a calm, deep voice asked. "Yes, who is this?" "This is Officer Martinez. I'm calling from the city police department. I know yesterday's visit must have been shocking. But we need to tell you something important, something about Mr. Hart." Emily's stomach dropped. "Yes. I'm listening." There was a pause. Then the officer continued. "Mr. Hart, the man you helped, he is not just anyone. He comes from a very prominent family in the city. His disappearance has been a huge concern for them. What you did yesterday, your small act of kindness, may have saved him." Emily blinked in disbelief. "Saved him? But I only gave him a sandwich. That's it. I didn't even talk to him much." The officer's tone softened. "Miss, sometimes, saving someone doesn't require heroics. Sometimes, it's something as small as a simple act of humanity. You reminded him that someone cared. That's all it took to bring him back to safety, or at least to survive until we could find him." Emily's mind refused to grasp it. She pictured the man she had fed. He had looked weak, scared, almost broken. And now she was being told that her small gesture was enough to help him survive. "Where is he now?" she asked. "We don't know," Officer Martinez admitted. "He hasn't come forward yet. But he's alive. And we want you to know, he remembers you. He trusts you. You've given him hope." Emily felt a strange mix of fear and warmth. Hope? She had not thought that giving away a sandwich could mean so much. She felt tears prick at the corner of her eyes. Later that day, Emily returned to the park. She had to see the spot where she met him yesterday. The bench she had sat on, the tree he had hidden under, the empty space he had left behind, it all seemed to echo with a silence that was almost too heavy to bear. She sat down on her bench, staring at the ground, lost in thought. She thought about his eyes, how full of pain and life they were at the same time. There was a story there, a story she had only glimpsed for a few moments. Her phone buzzed again. It was an unknown number. Hesitant, she answered. "Emily," the voice said softly. It was him. Daniel Hart. Her heart skipped a beat. "Yes, it's me. Are you okay?" There was silence on the other side. Then he spoke, his voice quiet but firm. I'm still scared. But I remember you. You didn't treat me like I was nothing. You gave me a reason to keep going." Emily felt tears fill her eyes. "I didn't do anything special. I just wanted to help." "You did more than you know," he said. "I've been lost. I've been hiding. But yesterday, seeing you, it reminded me that I'm still part of this world. That I still matter." Emily didn't know what to say. Her small act, the sandwich, the smile, had touched a life in ways she never imagined. Later that day, the police came back to her apartment. They explained more about Daniel's story. 3 weeks ago, Daniel Hart's life had collapsed. A sudden business failure, rumors in the media, and betrayal from people he had trusted left him feeling broken and worthless. He walked away from his home, from his family, from everything he had known. He became a ghost in the city, surviving on the streets, hiding from the world. His family searched everywhere, offering rewards, hiring detectives, putting ads in the newspapers. But he avoided them all. He wanted to disappear. He felt like he didn't deserve to be found. Emily listened quietly, feeling her chest tighten. She thought of his eyes, the way he had looked at her yesterday. Now she understood the hunger, the cold, the fear was only part of it. The rest was loneliness. A loneliness so deep that even his family could not reach him. "You helped him in a way no one else could," Officer Martinez said. "Your act reminded him that kindness still exists. That someone still cares." Emily swallowed hard. She hadn't realized that a simple gesture could have such a profound impact. She had always thought her life was ordinary, her actions small. But in that moment, she realized that even the smallest act can ripple through a life in ways she could never imagine. That evening, Emily walked through the park again, looking for him. She didn't see him. But she felt something in the air, a presence, quiet and strong. She smiled softly to herself, knowing that somewhere, Daniel Hart was alive, surviving because someone cared. For the first time, Emily understood that kindness was never wasted. She had offered him a sandwich, but what she had really given was hope. And hope, she realized, could be stronger than anything else in the world. As she left the park, her phone buzzed again. Another message. She opened it. It was from Daniel. "Thank you, Emily. I hope one day I can repay you, but for now, just know you saved me." Emily felt a lump in her throat. She typed a quick reply. "You don't need to repay me. Just live, that's enough." She put down her phone and looked around the park. The trees swayed gently in the evening breeze. The city lights reflected on the pavement, and somewhere, just beyond her sight, Daniel Hart was alive, holding onto a small thread of hope. Emily walked home, feeling lighter than she had in weeks. She didn't know what tomorrow would bring, or what dangers might still lurk for Daniel. But she knew one thing for certain: her small act of kindness had made a difference. And sometimes, that was enough to change everything. A few days after the police visit, Emily received a letter. It was neatly typed, formal, and surprisingly polite. Her hands shook as she opened it. "Miss Emily, we would like to invite you to our home. Your act of kindness has had a profound impact on our family. We hope you can join us at your earliest convenience. Sincerely, the Hart family." Emily couldn't believe her eyes. Her small gesture, the sandwich, the smile, had reached far beyond what she could have imagined. Her mind raced with questions. What would the family be like? Would they be angry that their father had disappeared? And most importantly, what would Daniel Hart say? A few hours later, Emily found herself standing outside a large mansion. The Hart residence was magnificent, with tall windows, a neatly trimmed lawn, and a sense of elegance that made her feel nervous and out of place. She adjusted her jacket, took a deep breath, and rang the doorbell. The door opened almost immediately. A woman, dressed in a simple but elegant outfit, smiled warmly. "You must be Emily," she said softly. "I'm Margaret Hart, Daniel's daughter. Please, come in." Emily stepped inside, her eyes wide at the luxurious interior. But she tried to stay focused, remembering that this was not about wealth, it was about the man she had helped. Margaret led her to a living room filled with light. Emily's heart raced as she heard footsteps approaching. Daniel Hart appeared. He was cleaner, dressed in neat casual clothes, but the tiredness in his eyes remained. Yet, there was something different, something calmer. He looked at Emily and gave her the faintest smile. "Emily," he said quietly. I wanted to meet you." Emily felt tears prick her eyes. I don't know why. I just gave you a sandwich. That's all." "No," Daniel said gently, his voice firm but soft. "You did more than that. You reminded me that someone cares. For 3 weeks, I felt invisible, worthless, lost, and then you showed me that there's still hope. That I still matter. Emily swallowed hard. She hadn't realized her simple act could touch someone so deeply. She nodded, unable to find the right words. Margaret stepped closer, taking Emily's hands in hers. Emily, you don't understand. My father disappeared, and we were terrified. We searched everywhere, but he didn't respond to anyone. And then, you appeared. You didn't judge him. You didn't treat him like a problem. You treated him like a human being. You gave him a reason to come back to us. Emily shook her head. I didn't do anything special. I just wanted to help. I didn't know he was someone important. Margaret smiled, tears glistening in her eyes. It doesn't matter. You helped when no one else could. That's what counts. Daniel sat down, looking at Emily with gratitude that words could not express. I don't even know how to explain it. All I know is, after that sandwich, after your kindness, I started to feel alive again. It was a small thing, but it reminded me that life isn't over, that I still belong somewhere. Emily felt a lump in her throat. She had never imagined that one small sandwich could carry so much meaning. Her heart swelled with a mixture of pride and humility. For the next hour, they talked. Daniel shared pieces of his story, how the sudden collapse of his business and betrayal from people he trusted had left him feeling hopeless. How he had walked the streets, avoiding everyone, almost giving up on life. Emily listened quietly, not interrupting, her mind trying to process the depth of his pain. She realized that sometimes, it was the smallest gestures that mattered the most. A smile, a kind word, a sandwich, these were powerful enough to reach someone even at their lowest point. Margaret explained how the family had tried everything: calls, messages, private investigators, but nothing worked until Emily's act unknowingly changed the course of events. You showed him humanity, Margaret said softly. You reminded him that he is not invisible. That someone still cares. That's a gift you can never take back. Emily felt tears slide down her cheeks. I never thought of it that way. I just wanted to help him eat. Daniel reached out and gently held her hands. It was more than that, Emily. You gave me hope. And hope is everything when you feel lost. Later, Emily was shown around the mansion, meeting other family members. They were all polite, warm, and clearly relieved to see Daniel back, alive and calmer. Yet, Emily never felt comfortable talking about herself. She wasn't used to praise, and she certainly wasn't expecting it. As they sat in the sunlit garden, Margaret turned to Emily. We want you to know, Emily, we owe you a lot. Not just for bringing my father back to us, but for showing us all the power of simple human kindness. Emily shook her head again. I don't deserve that. I only gave him a sandwich. Daniel laughed softly, a sound that carried relief and gratitude. Emily, that sandwich saved me. It's that simple. And now, thanks to you, I can start living again, not hiding in fear. A hush fell over the garden. For a moment, Emily felt overwhelmed. She had never thought a small act could change lives. She realized, in that quiet moment, that everything had shifted. Her life, their lives, it was all connected by something so simple, yet so profound. As Emily prepared to leave, Daniel walked her to the gate. Emily, thank you. Truly. I don't know how to repay you. Emily smiled, her heart full. You don't need to repay me. Just live your life. That's enough. Daniel nodded. I will. And I promise. I'll never forget what you did for me. Emily walked away, her steps light. She looked back once and saw Daniel standing there, looking at her with gratitude and something else, a quiet strength she hadn't seen before. She realized then that kindness wasn't about recognition or reward. It was about the difference you make in someone's life, even in the smallest way. As the sun set, Emily felt a sense of peace she hadn't felt in weeks. She had walked into that mansion as a stranger, expecting nothing. But she left knowing that one simple act, one sandwich, had helped someone find his way back to life. And sometimes, she thought, That's all it takes to change the world. The days after Emily's meeting with the Hart family felt surreal. She went back to her normal life, but her thoughts kept drifting to Daniel. She wondered how he was coping now that he was back with his family. The park, the sandwich, the police, it all felt like a dream she couldn't quite believe. Then, one afternoon, her phone rang. It was Officer Martinez again. "Emily," he said, his voice serious, "we need you to come down to the station." "It's about Mr. Hart." Her heart skipped a beat. "Is something wrong?" she asked, panic creeping into her voice. "Not wrong, but we need your input," the officer replied. "It's important." Emily arrived at the station, nervous. She hadn't expected that her small act of kindness would pull her even deeper into Daniel Hart's story. The same officers who had visited her apartment welcomed her into a small interview room. "Thank you for coming," Officer Martinez began. "We have some new information. It's concerning. And we think you might be able to help us understand it." Emily sat down, trying to calm her racing heart. "You remember the story we told you?" Martinez continued. "About Mr. Hart disappearing, about how your kindness may have helped him survive?" "Yes," Emily said quietly. "Well," the officer said, "there's more. Mr. Hart's disappearance wasn't just about stress or financial failure. Someone else was involved. Someone who wanted to make sure he didn't return, someone dangerous." Emily's stomach dropped. "Dangerous? What do you mean?" Martinez leaned forward. "Miss, during our investigation, we discovered threats made against Mr. Hart by a former business partner. This person wanted to take everything from him, ruin him completely. And we believe that's why he disappeared. He was hiding from someone who could have harmed him." Emily's hands shook. She thought back to Daniel's eyes under the oak tree, how frightened he had looked, how cautious. She had felt that fear instinctively, but she hadn't understood why. "You're saying he was running from someone?" she whispered. "Yes," Martinez said. "And without your help, Emily, he may have continued hiding, moving from street to street, vulnerable to danger. Your small act, your sandwich, reminded him that he mattered. That someone cared. That gave him the courage to survive and eventually come back to us safely." Emily swallowed hard. She felt a mixture of pride, fear, and disbelief. One simple sandwich had changed the course of a life. It had not just fed him, it had saved him. "And there's more," the officer continued. "Because Mr. Hart has returned, and he's safe, we can now take legal action against the person who tried to ruin him. We have enough evidence. Your testimony may be important." Emily's heart pounded. She had never imagined that a sandwich could lead to something this serious. She had helped a man in need, and now she was part of the effort to protect him legally. Later that evening, Emily visited the Hart mansion once again. Daniel greeted her with a quiet smile. "Emily," he said, "I wanted you to know, because of you, I feel like I can finally face the world again. I'm not hiding anymore. I'm ready to fight back, safely, with my family." Emily nodded, tears brimming in her eyes. "I didn't do anything special. I just gave you a sandwich." "No," Daniel said softly. "It was never just a sandwich. It was hope. It reminded me that kindness exists in the world, and that even when you feel invisible, someone sees you. That changed everything for me." Margaret, his daughter, joined them. "Emily, your act has reminded all of us what truly matters. Life isn't just about wealth or success, it's about caring, helping, being human. You showed us that." Emily smiled softly. She had never received such praise before, and yet, she realized it wasn't about her. It was about the impact of a simple act of kindness. A few days later, Emily received a call from Daniel himself. "Emily," he said, his voice calm but strong, "I want you to know something. The person who tried to harm me, they are going to be held accountable. And it's all because I survived, because you reminded me that I still matter. I owe you more than I can ever say." Emily shook her head. "You don't owe me anything. Just live your life." That's all that matters. Daniel paused for a moment, then said, I will. But I also want to make sure no one else suffers like I did. I want to help others who feel lost, who feel invisible. And I want you to be part of that, if you'll let me. Emily felt her heart swell. She had never imagined that one act of kindness could create such a chain of events. A sandwich had not just saved a life, it had inspired a whole plan to help others. Later that evening, Emily walked through the park where she had first met Daniel. The wind rustled the leaves, carrying the familiar scent of autumn. She sat on her old bench, remembering the moment she had handed him the sandwich. It had been so small. So ordinary. And yet, it had changed everything. She smiled softly, thinking about Daniel, his family, and the ripple effect of kindness. She realized then that life was unpredictable, full of moments that could seem small but carried great power. Sometimes, a tiny action, an act as simple as sharing your lunch, could save a life, restore hope, and even change the course of the future. Emily sat there for a long time, feeling the weight and the beauty of that truth. She didn't know what the future held, or what challenges Daniel would face next. But she knew that for now, he was safe, alive, and ready to reclaim his life. And she also knew that she had witnessed something incredible, the power of a simple, human act of kindness. The sun rose slowly over the city, casting golden light across the streets and parks. Emily sat quietly in her apartment, sipping her morning coffee, her mind wandering back to the events of the past few weeks. Her life had returned to a semblance of normalcy, but she felt different now, lighter, yet somehow connected to something bigger than herself. The knock on her door came suddenly, pulling her from her thoughts. She opened it to see Daniel Hart standing there, a calm but bright smile on his face. Behind him were Margaret and a few other family members, all carrying small boxes and gifts. Emily, Daniel said softly, we wanted to thank you again, properly. Emily shook her head. You've already thanked me enough. I didn't do anything extraordinary. No, Daniel said gently, you did something extraordinary. You reminded me that kindness still exists. That someone still sees you, even when you feel invisible. And because of that, everything has changed. He handed her a small gift box. Inside was a simple, handcrafted medal, a token of gratitude engraved with the words, for the heart that saved a life. Emily's eyes widened. She felt tears prick at her eyes. She hadn't expected this. She hadn't even thought her small act could matter so much. You don't need to wear it, Daniel said. It's a symbol, a reminder. Small actions can change lives. And yours did. Emily held the medal carefully, feeling its weight. It wasn't the physical weight that mattered, it was the invisible weight of what it represented, hope, humanity, and connection. After a quiet moment, Margaret spoke. Emily, our family wants to do something more. We want to help people who are struggling on the streets, like my father was. We want to create a program, a safe space, food, and support for those who feel lost. And we want you to be a part of it, if you'll let us. Emily felt a warmth spread through her chest. She had never imagined that giving a sandwich to a homeless man could lead to this, a chance to make a difference for so many others. I'd love that, she said softly. Daniel smiled. Then it's settled. Your kindness inspired this, Emily. And now we can help others. Together. Later that week, Emily walked through the park again. The oak tree stood tall, its leaves rustling gently in the breeze. She sat on the same bench where she had first met Daniel and looked around. The city moved on, people walked by, some rushing, some laughing, some lost in their own worlds. Her eyes fell on a man sitting alone, looking tired and hungry. Without thinking, Emily reached into her bag and pulled out a sandwich. She walked toward him, her heart steady, and handed it to him with a smile. Here, she said softly. You might need this more than I do. The man looked up at her, surprise and gratitude flashing across his face. Thank you, he whispered, his voice shaky. Emily smiled, her heart full. She realized that this was the true reward, the simple act of seeing someone, acknowledging them, helping them. Nothing grand, nothing flashy. Just kindness. And in that moment, she knew that the chain of good she had started was only beginning. Back at the Hart Mansion, Daniel and Margaret were busy planning their charity initiative. They wanted to create shelters, provide meals, and support those who had nowhere to turn. And Emily was at the center of it, not as a hero, but as a friend, a witness to the power of small actions. Daniel looked at her one evening as they reviewed plans. "Emily, do you remember the day we met? You gave me that sandwich, and it changed everything. I was ready to give up, but you reminded me I still mattered. That's why we're doing this now. Because someone cared enough to act." Emily nodded, feeling tears rise. "I didn't know it would lead to all this. I didn't know one small sandwich could matter so much." Daniel reached out and placed a hand on her shoulder. "It's not the sandwich. It's the heart behind it. Yours. And now, that heart is helping so many others. That's the true reward." Days turned into weeks, and the initiative grew. The park where Emily had met Daniel became a hub of activity, food, warmth, guidance, and hope for those who needed it. And every time Emily handed a sandwich, a blanket, or even a kind word to someone in need, she remembered Daniel's eyes, the eyes that had seen hope because someone had cared. One evening, as the sun set and the sky turned shades of orange and purple, Emily sat on the old park bench, looking at the city around her. She felt a deep sense of peace. She realized that life wasn't about grand gestures or fame. It was about small actions, repeated with sincerity, that could ripple through the lives of others in ways she could never measure. And sometimes, she thought, it only took one small act, a sandwich, a smile, a moment of genuine care, to change a life forever. Emily closed her eyes for a moment, feeling the wind on her face and the quiet hum of the city around her. Somewhere, Daniel Hart was living again, safe, loved, and inspired to help others. And countless others would be touched by the chain of kindness she had helped start. She smiled softly to herself, knowing that the world could be changed one small act at a time. And in that moment, Emily understood the truth of what she had learned. Kindness matters. Small gestures matter. And even the tiniest act of humanity can become the greatest reward.